go ahead and get started. Like I said, welcome to the Forestry Camp info session. We're going to start today with a short presentation, maybe around 20-ish minutes, and then we'll leave the last 30 minutes for kind of a free Q&A session with our panelists here. My name is Sophia. My pronouns are they, them. I am the EMF and GPB major advisor here at Rouser College. So all things plants, you can come to me for advising. Um, and our little mini check-in with the panelists today is going to be, what is your favorite tree? And I'll also answer that. Pretty basic, but in my defense, I did go to UC Santa Cruz, so I do have a soft spot for redwood trees. I will go ahead and pass off to Eve. It'll just be name, pronouns, major, and then favorite tree.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Eve. I'm a double major, forestry and environmental science. My pronouns are she, her, and my favorite tree, another basic answer, but it's okay, I stand by it, is a Jeffrey pine. Should I I'll pass to Mary?
Thanks, Eve. Hi, I'm Mary. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a forestry major on the professional track, and I'm also your forestry peer advisor along with Sonia. So if you have any further questions after this, feel free to come by to my office hours. I'm happy to answer them.
What's your favorite tree?
Oh gosh, the most important question. Probably a Monterey cypress, I would say. And I'll pass it off to Delia.
Hello, everyone. My name is Delia. I use she, her pronouns. I am a third year forestry major, also on the professional track like Mary. And my favorite tree is an incense cedar. It changes a lot, but right now we'll go with incense cedar.
I'm gonna have to look up some of these trees because I'm not familiar. But cool, we'll go ahead and get started. So, what is Forestry Camp? Forestry Camp is an 8-week immersion field experience. Camp provides an introduction to the scientific and professional dimensions of forestry and wildlife resource management. And I'll also ask our panelists, and whoever wants to go first can just feel free to jump in, unmute. How would you describe Forestry Camp?
Yeah, I can get us started, but I'll leave it open for you and Delia to add on. It's really like one of the best opportunities to get field-based forestry experience and also ecology experience. So even if you're not interested in forestry, we take 4 different classes. One of those is Sierra Nevada ecology. But it's really like taking the classroom outside in this completely different setting. Our lectures are usually by a fire circle. So if you've been wanting to get field experience and combine that with learning more about forests and ecology and management, it's a great way to do that.
Yeah, I can add on to that. It is the best. And it's so fun. We're learning outside every day. It's beautiful out there. Um, yeah, it's just awesome. And you learn a lot of field techniques as well, which can be really applicable to jobs. So it's really great.
Yeah, I'll add on to that, like, again, echoing everybody else, it is the best experience ever. I actually came into forestry camp only environmental science, and by the end, actually before camp even finished, I was filling out the double major form to add on forestry. So they got me good. But yeah, no, it's awesome. Like it's a group of about 30 and you just learn everything together. And then when classes are over, you can like go to a lake, go to a creek. Um, yeah, like it's really fun to get to know all these people in this really like tight-knit group that all share this like similar like academic interests to you. But then also it's fun when like everyone has their own individual interests. Like there's a meadow restoration day and some people get really jazzed about that. There's like silviculture days and then like yeah. So it's yeah, just the best experience ever. The best summer I've ever had, for sure.
All right, well, you all heard it there. It's the best experience. You get a lot of hands-on experience working in forestry. So if you're even kind of like mildly interested in forestry, this can, what I have found, and I'm only in this position for 1 year, it really cements for students, like you was saying, whether or not they're going to become EMF majors. It also, even for the EMF students, it tends to confirm whether or not they're going to stick with the forestry track or even switch into the forestry track, which Mary mentioned earlier is the professional track. Going to our next slide. Forestry camp, as the panelists are saying, is a great experience where you're living in the forest for 8 weeks. While you're there, every day you're doing field work. You're also going on hikes, you're learning about the rivers, the soil, the trees, the people who live in the community, which I think is really awesome. It's also I don't think this can be said enough. It's a wonderful and immersive place where you get to also interact with like the Meadow Valley Fire Department. And I know that in recent years, students have even been able to participate in some prescribed burns. You also get to learn about some indigenous practices for stewarding the land. This year, camp is going to be running from May 26th, which is the day after Memorial Day, to July 17th. While it is a quick turnaround between the end of the spring semester and the start of camp, this is to ensure that campers do have the ability to experience and practice a prescribed burn. It's also generally a little bit cooler around this time of year because it does get pretty hot later in the summer months. And having attended I think I was at camp the second to last week, it did get pretty warm. I was a bit uncomfortable, I won't lie. Um, and so, prerequisites for camp, this is something that has come up when students are asking me about applying to forestry camp. So there are no set prerequisites for it, and you're not going to be denied because you don't meet some of these recommended prerequisites. In general, it's helpful if you have some experience in ecology and plant biology, specifically around plant identification. But I'm also curious to hear from the panelists, what was your experience with preparedness for camp? Did you notice whether or not other campers struggled depending on their background?
At least for me, I felt, I mean, it's good to have like some basic ecology and environmental knowledge, but you're basically taught everything you need there. And you're working with all your group, your camp people, and they'll help you out a lot. And there's a lot of collaborative group too. So it's like if you have some sort of weakness, I'm sure there'll be somebody else who can help support you and vice versa. Um, yeah, but I didn't really notice any specific people's majors who were having like a harder time per se.
Yeah, I'll just add on to that. I completely agree with Delia. I think that most of what you'll get or what you need is going to be taught to you. I think the biggest thing that I would encourage people to go into camp with is having an idea that you're going to be outside. I think that's kind of where I saw the biggest difference is because some people go into it not really understanding that's going to be a field-based experience. So kind of having that expectation that it's going to be really hot some days and you're spending the entire day in the field. A lot of times, some of our cabins are, I'm sure we'll go into this, but open air cabins, there's opportunity for bunks too if you're not interested in that. But it is like, it's kind of like a summer camp environment and you're going to be outside all the time. So, and you're exposed to the elements that come with being outside. So that's kind of the prerequisite I would see is just being ready for that. And not necessarily needing to have experience with that. I think a lot of people go into camp without having had a lot of field experience, and that's a great place to go into it. But at least just understanding that.
Yeah, +1 to everything that was said. I don't think I have anything to add on, but yeah, be ready for the outdoors for sure.
Yeah, so as just to summarize what our panelists has said is that, camp is going to prepare you for everything that you need. You're not working alone. It is really interactive because you do end up working on my understanding is it's a small group project throughout these 8 weeks. And the biggest thing you can do to prepare yourself is just know you're going to be outside a lot. And even if you didn't grow up with a whole lot of outdoors experience and camping experience, from again, what I observed is like this is a really great place to kind of get some of that experience, and gently kind of ease you into like what camping could be like because you're kind of more in this like cabin style living situation. But again, we'll get to the housing at the end. And I also want to add on that while camp is predominantly EMF students, anyone is eligible to go regardless of major, regardless of even being a UC Berkeley student. Many other RCNR majors will end up at camp, and I would say the common ones would be ES and CRS, and I think MEB does show up as like a maybe a far third major. But there's also been participants in the past from like the history and art practice department, and as you might imagine, they don't necessarily have the same background as an EMF student, or even some of the RCNR students who are taking some similar classes. Still, they are able to keep up with camp, generally do well, and generally have a really great experience. It might mean that as a non-major or even someone in an unrelated discipline to forestry, you're putting in more work at the beginning of camp. But generally, again, as the panelists have said, there's enough scaffolding within the classes that you're not going to be, super far behind. All right, and so now we're going to get into the classes. So again, just reiterating that forestry is an intensive 8-week experience. You all are earning 11 units in just 8 weeks. And to put that into perspective, like in a normal semester, you're taking about 12 units over 15 to 16 weeks. So this is not pretty, this is a condensed experience. Camp is broken up into 4 courses. 105A, Sierra Nevada Ecology, is around 3 weeks. 105B, Forest Measurements, I don't know why it broke up weird on this slide, is about 1 week. And then SBM 105C, which is silviculture and utilization, is again 3 weeks. And former campers, please feel free to correct me on the weeks. I might be getting them wrong. And then the last course is kind of this culminating experience. Forestry management, I think that says assessment, is around 1 week as well. So panelists, just starting off with SBM 105A, what did you learn in Sierra Nevada ecology?
Sure, I can start us off. You learn a lot about a lot of different plants. So I think we learned, correct me if I'm wrong, probably like 60 plants or like 50 to 60 plants. And then we also learn about some fungi and like diseases that affect trees. So then definitely be ready to memorize things the first 3 weeks. It's a lot of work, but it's so, so useful for the rest of the time that you're there. So then you like know, like in the last week for your like your management plan, like you know what trees are which, what they like, what they don't like, how to manage for the plants you have. So that memorization goes to good use for sure. You also learn a lot about like fire ecology, fire history in the Sierra Nevada. Let me think. Yeah, that's what I gather. People can add on more stuff too.
Yeah, we also had a super fun freshwater ecology day, which was awesome, where we went and learned about um, all different sort of invertebrates in the water. Super cool. We also learned about soils, and we had a whole soil day, which was really neat as well. So it's basically the ecology of Sierra Nevada, anything you can think about, mainly plants, but it was it was my favorite class. So look forward to that class.
Yeah, that kind of covers it, so I won't add anything else.
All right, thank you. And what skills did you all develop in forest measurements?
Yeah, I can cover that one. That one is correct me if I'm wrong, but I think our shortest class, it's only a week long. And it's kind of like an equalizer for people who haven't had any forestry field experience. So it's a great chance if you haven't had any forestry experience to learn what goes into taking inventory of trees, what goes into measuring the health of a forest. Which can be really helpful if you're interested in forestry research or if you're interested in more of the management side of forestry. And I think across the board, I've heard from forestry students that this can be one of the best classes in terms of putting on your resume to apply to forestry jobs in the future. And you also learn some like navigation, triangulation. Yeah, but pretty short class.
Yeah, I will definitely just echo what Mary has shared in terms of like this class being the one where you really do get to put the skills you learn in 105B on your resume, and it really does mean something for um, the industry itself. And camp in general is very well known in the industry. But moving on to 105C, what did you all do in silviculture and utilization, and what is silviculture and utilization?
So silviculture and utilization was a 2-week class. The first week was for us taught by Miranda Redmond, and it was focusing on silviculture. That was how do you manage trees? So we learned I don't actually really remember, but in utilization, we it was taught by Rob York, and he taught us different ways in which you can utilize them for us. So it was more on the logging side. We saw a tree get cut down, we planted saplings. Yeah, those kind of introduce you more into the management side of forestry, and it works off of the things that you learned in forest measurement as well. Oh,
Yeah, yeah, I can.
Mary, add.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I can just add on more about the culture part, which is basically just like how trees grow. So you kind of learn about that whole process and how managers can alter that process. So anything from planting, cone collection to thinning operations. And the utilization part is more of that, like what do you do with the biomass you remove from the forest? So anything from the basic like timber products. We go visit mills, which is really cool. There's a huge mill in Quincy, which is right next to camp. One of the biggest mills in California, I believe, which is a really cool day. And you also get to hear from different people who are trying to figure out how to use biomass. So even if you're not interested in the timber production side, we had someone come up and speak to us from the wood products lab at Berkeley, talking to us about like how they're trying to use biomass to sequester more carbon, especially like fine fuels, that sort of thing. So. Oh, and also just add that I think this is kind of a plug for all of camp, but the professors that come to teach and the access you get to those professors is kind of unrivaled on Berkeley campus. So like Rob York, the professor who teaches silviculture and utilization the second week, he doesn't really teach any other classes except for that. So you can't access him at Berkeley, and he's a really incredible professor. Scott Stevens, who teaches Sierra Nevada ecology, you get him for 3 straight weeks, and he's one of the best fire ecologists in the field. Miranda Redmond is doing really great work around seed collection. I'm sure, I think Cozy's on here. She could probably talk about that. But yeah, so a lot of these professors, you don't even get to take a class with them at Berkeley. So it's really neat to be able to hear from them for an entire week every day.
I'll add to that point. I now work in Miranda Redmond's lab. Like I had known her before camp, but then like being able to see like more one-on-one like what her research is and like being able to talk to her about what she does was a super unique opportunity. And then that led to a lab position, which is super exciting. But yeah, I'll add that silviculture was probably my favorite week, probably, just because yeah, I don't know, like the larger scale management of like thinning treatments and whatnot, like how you can look at different goals for what you want to do with your land, and then how to tailor your plan to like achieve those goals.
Great, thank you. And I'll say a little bit more at the end, just to echo what you all are saying about access to professors. But before I get into that, what was SBIM 105D like?
Yeah, I can talk about that one. I really liked this class. It was essentially a culmination of everything you had learned. It was it 2 weeks? I think 2 weeks, right? Um, yeah, so like the first week you are assigned a plot of land. Ours was about 110 acres. And then you have a map of it. And then you choose on your map the plots you want to lay down. Then in the first week you gather data using the procedures that you learned in 105B. And then you get your data for your plot. Then you enter it into like Excel and FVS and like analyze it, see what you have on the land, see what you're dealing with, and then you, based on goals that either are like assigned to you or like ones that you can determine yourself, how then, based on that data that you have, wanna like what plan you want to have for using the land, which is like really, really cool. I really enjoyed this part. Like it was just really cool to be able to do all of that all in one. Like it was really, really fun. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, for me, it was amazing. First of all, the first week, like Eve just said, using all the knowledge you'd gained from the entire camp. And then also for me, it really cemented that I would like to do, manage your work in my career. So it's great. You definitely get a taste of like what people are actually doing in the field in terms of forest management. And it was awesome, and we got to you people came up with their own um, objectives. And then at the end, also, side note, they get great professionals to come and teach the class. So that was really cool as well. Like people who are also managers who help and advise you on your plan. And then at the end, you give a presentation on what you did, why you chose these ideas. And it was great. It was a great way to end camp.
Thank you for the thumbs up, Mary.
Oh, here I can add. Wait, is it okay if I add something?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, cool. Like the people that come, like the people from industry are extremely cool. I think we had the former deputy director of the Forest Service. So like the number two guy in the country in the Forest Service was talking to us like one-on-one about our projects, which was like completely unreal. Like that's really, really, really cool stuff. Um, but yeah, I'll add on to that it's a lot of work. The final project is a lot of work, but it's really fun because you're prepared for it. You know what I mean? Like it's like you're definitely ready, like the skills that you learned throughout the rest of the summer or the prior in the summer prepare you really well for it. Like by the time the presentation came around, like even though you're talking to half of camp and all these amazing industry professionals, like at least I can speak for myself that I felt like pretty good about it because like you lay down the plots yourself, get the data yourself, analyze it yourself, and then make the plan yourself. So it's like it's it can be intimidating, but I think that you're prepared for it and in the end, it's like really, really fun.
Yeah, thank you for adding that. And just to kind of emphasize some of the things that were coming up, camp is taught by both UC Berkeley professors and cooperative extension specialists from the UC research stations, which are located throughout California. There are also guest speakers from the community. So you do get like a wide variety of experiences and perspectives. At camp. It's also, as the panelists were mentioning, a great way to connect with faculty. Eve said that this is how she connected with Professor Redmond and got a research position. And I'll say it's not uncommon for even me to hear that this is how students have gotten into the forestry research is just by being at camp and sometimes even approaching the professor after election, being like, hey, what sort of open positions are you anticipating in the fall? And getting plugged in that way. So, and another thing too, and I always tell EMF students this, especially before they're at camp, is one, just in general, the forestry alumni engagement is unlike anything I've ever seen in any major on campus. And the alumni engagement with camp is also pretty unrivaled. So it makes for a really great networking opportunity if you're looking for more experience in future summers for like internships or other sort of like independent projects that you could possibly work on. It's also, and this is has been like lightly touched upon by our panelists, but like you are gaining practical professional development experience, skills that you can put on your resume, especially with the culminating project. And because of, how long forestry camp has been going on for, it is well known in the field what it means to have attended camp. So it is incredibly valuable and tangible forestry experience that really gives UC Berkeley EMF students a leg up in the industry when it comes to looking for jobs. I will just go to our next slide. So now we're getting into some of the costs, the unfun things to talk about. So camp does cost just over 5K. It uses the summer session cost and unit rate. So that ends up being around $419 per unit. And then there is the one-time campus fee of $452. The cool thing about camp is that room and board is actually covered by I don't know how to pronounce this. I think it's Schwabacher Endowment. So your, yeah, your housing is covered. Your food Monday through Friday is covered. That is 3 meals a day as well. On weekends, from what I've gathered, is students generally will either get some groceries while in town, or they'll even just dine out at some of the local restaurants. For those of you who you're seeing this number, and you're like, wow, that's a big chunk of money. Summer aid is available if you qualify for summer financial aid. So I recommend chatting with financial aid to determine whether or not you could get some coverage. The best way to get in contact with financial aid is to just start with Cal Student Central. They're kind of the front line for all of the offices in Sproul. So you can go to them at 120 Sproul, or you can also join their virtual front desk. And at various times during the semester, they even have a callback queue. So highly recommend that. Additionally, this is for EMF students only, but for EMF students who are also low income, y'all will generally receive scholarships to help cover any remaining balance that you might have from camp too. So yeah, it's pretty wonderful. Non-UC students do pay a different rate, and that can be found on the website, which will be linked later in the presentation. But from what I've seen, all the names I've seen are Berkeley students so far. And then kind of moving on to the nice, fun question is, what is housing like at Forestry Camp? Accommodations consist of a number of 10-person dormitories where it's two people per room. There's also rustic two-person cabins that are also available. Beds and mattresses are provided, but you will be expected to provide your own bedding and pillows. So that could even be like just bringing a sleeping bag. And panelists, what would you like to share about your experiences with the free housing at camp?
Yeah, I can start off, although I'm sure other panelists have other things to add. I describe camp to people who have no idea what forestry camp is like my parents' friends, as a summer camp for adult college students, which is kind of what housing feels like. You have these bunk houses, which are great for people who want some more coverage, and then you have these pretty historic open house cabins, excuse my voice. Um, and you can like shout to each other from the cabins. So like Delia was like 4 cabins away, and then I could talk to her across my cabins. They kind of become your like mini home. So a lot of people have themes. There's like names that get passed down, letters that get passed down from previous participants. It's kind of a really special thing to be a part of. Mine was decorated with twinkle lights, and I like set it up as if it was my house. So yeah, it's definitely like a home more than camping, I would say. And the dining hall makes it feel kind of like a summer camp. Oh, also, I'm not sure what it's going to be like for camp this year, but I know for camp our year, a lot of people ended up not having to share their bunkhouse or their cabin. I'm sure Sophia maybe could touch more on that. I don't know if it's different, but if that's a concern of yours, there is frequently opportunity to not have to share.
I can add too that in each bunkhouse room and in each shanty is what the like open concept little houses are called. You have a desk, a chair, some kind of like shelving situation, and then a bed, and I think a lamp too, which I wasn't expecting. Like I was expecting like just a bed and that's it, honestly. But then when I walked in my room, I was like, oh, cool. I didn't bring hangers, but there was like hanging space. So that's something to consider in terms of what is provided to you.
It sounds like you all were mostly in the dorms, but I'm curious what you know of the shanty houses or those kind of like open, I don't even know how to describe them.
Yeah, Mary and I were both in shanties actually. We were
Oh,
in the same shanty cluster. So just like basic description, you got your door, which is like it honestly kind of looks like the outside part of a porch door, but like you can't see through it, but that's kind of what it looks like if you like have the double doors kind of situation. Then it's wood planks and then sort of like chicken wire almost but like up where your head is so like you can change with privacy and everything but it's the best and for me I loved it so much because it felt like I was outside all the time. So disclaimer, if you don't like that feeling, definitely don't choose that, but for me it felt like I was outside all the time. I felt the temperature changes. I could hear the birds, I could see the sun. Like I loved it, and it, like Mary was saying, it literally was my house. Like I had all my stuff in there. Um, I was on all the way on the edge, so it felt more like I was, like away and sort of in the woods. But it's the best. And I've heard that there are problems sometimes if it rains a lot. Mary and I did not have that issue because we really had barely any rain, so I didn't get wet or anything. Um, yeah, but I would say go shanty. Um, but yeah, they're awesome.
nice. It sounds like the more outdoors you are, maybe you'd lean more towards the shanty versus maybe more inexperienced or not a huge fan of the outdoors, maybe you go dorms. Um, there's another question. Oh yeah. Can all or one of you talk a little bit about how, because I found this super interesting, how water heating works at camp?
Yes, I
Well,
can.
yeah, that'll be
So part of camp, it's kind of communal living in some respect. You have your own space, but a lot of the tasks around camp are the campers' responsibility. So we have chores that you kind of pick at the beginning of camp, and you have an opportunity to change them later on. One of those, which was mine, is lighting the fire to heat the water. So the showers, we have think two big bathhouses and three bathrooms on camp. And the showers are warmed through the heating of the fire, which meant waking up early, although on mine we worked out something where no one was showering early, so I didn't actually have to light it early. Um, but yeah, it's honestly a great way to feel like you have some ownership over camp. And there's one camp manager who's been there for a while, and he's really involved with all the campers. And part of sorry, this is actually different, but part of lighting the fire is you get to chop wood for the fire, which Delia was really into. So if splitting wood is your thing, that's another task. Yeah, kitchen cleaning. I don't know, some van cleaning. Yeah, various tasks that don't take that much time.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Our kind of final question, or at least prepared question, is what does your average day look like at forestry camp?
Yeah, I can take this one. So you wake up and you have breakfast in the dining hall. Um, while breakfast is out, you also make your lunch, and the lunch choices were very good. Like I was impressed. Like they had like lots of different kinds of bread and meats and cheeses, like microgreens sometimes, like tomatoes, cucumbers, the whole shebang. So yeah, you pack your lunch, and you take that with you to the field. So then for a day of classes, you could either have some lecture in the morning, maybe it's like hour, 2 hours-ish, and then you go out to the field and do some work, or it's you go straight out to the field and then maybe you have a lecture in the afternoon. People can correct me if I'm wrong. That's basically how it would work. But it also depends on the class too. Like the first 3 weeks when you're with Scott, it's mainly field. So then like maybe you'd have an hour or two in the morning that's lecture and then the rest of the day is field work. But then for other classes, there's a larger like in classroom component, I would say. Yeah, and so then you're usually done with classes. It depends. Like you could be done anywhere from like 3 to 5 p.m. is when you could be done. And then dinner, I think was at 6. Is that right? 6:30? 6? Cool.
Yeah, and breakfast
Um,
was at 7, just to add. And
thank
classes
you.
started around 8.
Breakfast at 7, classes started at 8. Thank you. Um, and then dinner was at 6. Um, yeah. So then like depending on when classes end, people often would go to like various places. Like you can go to this little creek spot before dinner or after dinner. So that was always really fun to hang out together. But yeah.
Yeah, your days at camp are pretty structured. You're pretty much out doing stuff from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Sometimes there are like evening lectures as well. Um, but I'm also just wanting to be mindful of time, and I want to give folks who are still with us some time to ask your own questions too for our panelists. Um, you can either come off mute and ask your question directly, or you can put them in the chat and I will read them out to our panelists. Um, Okay, Zio, you do have a question in the chat. The date range is May, I think it was May 26th through July 17th. It should not be subject to change at this time. If it is, that will be communicated with students. And I'm not sure what you mean by what the logistics look like for May 26th and July 27th. If you're talking about getting to camp, um, some students will take their own vehicles up to camp. There's also the van option where you would meet probably at West Crescent to take you up to camp, and you'll just go up together. And same for, I think the drop-off point is the same. That's my understanding, but Eve, Mary, Delia. Okay, cool. Got a thumbs ups.
Do vans have a spot for bicycle or no?
Is there room for a bicycle in the vans?
There is not. I brought my mountain bike and I ended up driving up and I had a bike rack. So you might find someone who's doing that. I think there's at least one person usually who does that a year.
Cool, thanks. And while I'm at it, what does laundry and cooking look like at a home for the events for students?
Theo, you're coming in a little garbled. The only part I heard was what does laundry look like? If there was another part of your question, could you type it in the chat?
I'm happy to answer laundry real quick. We have a washer dryer, um, weekend cooking facilities. There we have a microwave, but there's not, and I mean you can cook things over the fire, but there's not like you don't have access to a real kitchen. But yeah, laundry, washer, dryer, and there's great food places to eat in Quincy that are yummy. So you can do that as
And I also see a question in chat about the commute. The drive is about 4.5 hours, 4 hours. So it is a far distance from the Bay Area if you are considering like having to go back on the weekends.
And speaking of weekends, what do people usually do on the weekends?
A lot of us would go to this place called Morning Thunder for brunch, which was amazing, loved it. We would go thrifting a lot. People would go to like Bucks Lake or go hiking. People organize like camping trips sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, weekends are usually your time. You may end up uh doing homework, but more often than not, I was noticing or heard students talking about like doing their own little excursions. Um, and then there's another question. Is there a time ideally that one should get to camp? Oh, I can answer that one. Yeah, you will be getting to camp the Tuesday after Memorial Day, and that is just, or actually, no, you're traveling on Memorial Day, and that's so that lecture can start right on that Tuesday.
And typically you do the cabin assignment, this is new, online beforehand. So it used to be the case that people would try to show up really early to get the cabin they wanted, but that's no longer an issue. So you can show up throughout the day, unless they changed it back, which I don't think they did.
Okay, and then there's one question that is, how academic did the experience feel? Like, did it feel like summer school?
I mean, like you're in school essentially from like 8 to 3 or like 8 to 4. So for me personally, it felt like school. And then like there's assignments outside of, well, sometimes assignments outside of that time as well. It definitely is pretty rigorous. But there is, I think it's well balanced that there's also time to like have fun weekend plans, like we were saying.
yeah, and it's not like you're sitting in a classroom getting lectured all day, you know? You are actively learning, but you're like walking around the forest and seeing things and hearing from really cool speakers. So it's rigorous, like you are there to do school, but I mean, you have the weekends to yourself. And you're if I'm assuming if you're here, you're interested in this stuff. You're learning really cool stuff. So
And like, sorry, I'll just add really quick that you're around the same 30, 35 people for the entire summer, doing classes together. So I think different from summer school, you're like just hang like it's like you're in the woods with your friends learning, but it's also very social, even though there's an academic part. People try to speed run to the lake after class to jump in, and you're having all your meals together. A lot of people sit by the campfire at nighttime. I know there was more of a musical component in previous years, but I don't think any of us were very musically talented.
That's great to hear. And this might be our final question before we close out is how many sets of work clothes should I plan on bringing? If laundry isn't too bad, I was wondering if washing twice a week is feasible. This is especially a good question to answer for those who might not be able to take up much to camp.
I can touch on it. I think I would say to not rely on laundry too heavily because there is at times 1 to 2 working laundry machines shared with 35 campers. That being said, a lot of people come into camp not having have like a backstock of work gear. That's like a lot to ask for people to have all the correct pants. I have a friend who like brought up 1 or 2 pairs of work gear, and then you can find cheap work gear at the thrift stores in town if you realize you need more. So you're not in the middle of nowhere. You're able to buy things relatively inexpensively. I would say like 4 to 5 pairs might be a good number, but if you can't bring that with you, there are definitely options. And
And then
also,
oh,
oh,
go
sorry.
ahead.
If you need work gear, I think Forestry Club could be a good resource because there's people who have old work gear that they're trying to get rid of. I'm sure there's other resources on campus.
Yeah, those components might be talked more about during the forestry camp meeting that happens in RRR week 2. But I will plus one for the thrift stores in Quincy. They are not Bay Area prices. These are rural California prices. So yeah, I got some pretty cool stuff while I was there, and is admittedly one thing I'm looking forward to going back. But just to close us out, the forestry camp application is available now through March 11th. March 11th, I believe, is a Wednesday. It'll close exactly at 11:59 p.m. So please keep that in mind. If you have more questions, you can email me at the email below, emf.gpb.ugrad@Berkeley. Mary also shared earlier that she is one of our EMF peer advisors, so you can also go to her office hours. And Sonia is also an EMF peer advisor who has gone to camp as well, so you can chat with either of them. If you attend Forestry Club meetings, which are on Wednesday, 12 to 1 at 103 Milford Hall, I'm sure you could ambush some forestry students who have been to camp. But yeah, thank you all for joining us. Thank you to our panelists for sharing your knowledge, your wisdom with us all. And I hope you all take care, and I look forward to seeing your applications.